There's just too many details written that we can't get into a short video. But we can say that the Gifford family history begins before William the Conqueror. For a few generations at least, they were in Normandy uh, before surnames were invented, and then eventually became Giffords, de Gifford. Then the D-E was dropped. But uh, the Giffords were involved, along with a lot of other Normans, with William the Conqueror, and were rewarded. Randolph de Gifford, who became Sir Randolph, was a standard bearer with William the Conqueror in the invasion, and was rewarded with some grants, land grants, originally in the Somersetshire area. They were there for a while, and then the family, for many generations, was in the Devonshire area. And then my ninth great grandfather, Philip, was apparently born in London, and then his son William became the immigrant to the United States. Actually, in 1615, he was born somewhere in England, and then sailed to the New World and settled in the Cape Cod area. And for generations, I guess his son Jonathan, his son Peleg, and his son Noah all lived in roughly the same area, Sandwich, Barnstable on Cape Cod. But Alpheus apparently was born 176 miles, mostly west, a little bit north, in Adams Township of Berkshire County in western Massachusetts. He was born in 1793, and then he traveled 135 miles on due west to Butternuts, New York, where he met Anna Nash, and they got married. By 1820, spring of 1820, they'd been married about 4 years and had a couple of kids, including Mary Elizabeth, who is my direct ancestor. They were just little kids. Ichabod was the little boy, her younger brother, and more came. They were probably living in Pennsylvania, but they might have been living in New York. Ichabod was born in Pennsylvania, northern Pennsylvania, and the third child was born in New York. So somewhere in that area, they were living. They actually moved around. As you look at where their children were born, it reflects the fact that Alpheus, who started at the age of 18 as a minister, preaching the gospel as a Reformed Methodist, he loved the Bible. He read the Bible, and that's how he became literate. And he loved to preach, and he followed the circuit, and he went around the state of New York. He could have been within 40 miles or thereabouts of Palmyra in the 1820 period of time, and could have heard of things that were rumored about during that time and the decade that followed concerning Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. But he finally learned for sure about the Book of Mormon when they were living in Pennsylvania, Tioga County, in 1831, and went to Palmyra and met the prophet either in Palmyra or in Kirtland, either New York or Ohio, and got 5 copies of the Book of Mormon and immediately became a missionary. He went from being a Methodist minister preacher to being a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He teamed up with his brother, who lived not too far away from him in Pennsylvania, and was a neighbor to Enos Curtis, who became another one of my 4th great grandfathers, along with his wife, who was married to Ruth Franklin. Those two families spent a lot of history together, along with the Durfee family that they met up with later and intermarried. They all had a lot of history with the early church in the 30s and the 40s, and then from then on. That's kind of a summary of Alpheus. He ended up dying on Christmas Day in 1841. We think he was living on the Morley settlement near Lima, Illinois, in Hancock County, after they'd been forced out of Missouri. He got consumption, they called it, pneumonia, and he died. They'd been through a lot. He went through all the grief in Jackson County and Clay County and Caldwell County, then passed away. The family went on, of course, without him, and there's more history.